Hey guys, Akil here. Welcome back to another episode of the Trading Coach Podcast. Thank you as always for joining. Before we hop into today's episode, I want to say a big thank you for all of the support that you guys have given. This is episode number 400. I have no idea how we got here so quick, but it's been an amazing journey. And it's pretty cool that we've been able to turn this podcast, which was just started as another platform for me to share information and hopefully motivate people out there, whether it's with becoming a better trader, a better entrepreneur, a better business person, or just educating people on money. It's cool that this has become one of the top Forex and top trading podcasts out there. And it's been that way for some time. And that's a hats off to you guys who keep supporting the show and keep providing me content to share in this podcast episode. I thought this episode is going to be fitting for number 400, which I guess is a milestone because we talk a little bit about the underlying goals of why I started teaching in the first place and really why I started this podcast. So it's kind of cool to be able to come back around to the beginning and just see that we're continuing to harp on the same emphasis, continuing to really probe at the same values, and that when you do the right things for the right reasons, it's funny how success usually happens. Wanted to hop in because I have limited time today. I've got a meeting a little bit later, so I want to get out of here in an hour. And I want to talk a little bit about something before we get started because I came into today a little bit fired up. A little bit pissed off, a little bit offended, all of that fun stuff. And it all started this morning when I put out a poll question, and I don't know why I expected anything different as a response, but I did. And to give you guys some background, I wasn't Gabby this time. I was doing some prep work on one of the questions for today's Q&A session. One of it was, one of the things we're going to talk about is a trader who's going through the backtesting process. He's acquiring stats. He's looking to build a portfolio. He's trying to figure out what is the perfect mix of pairs to, I don't want to say have a balanced portfolio, but that's going to be one of the questions for you guys is to what's the ideal portfolio? Is it worth adding this pair? Is it worth keeping it out? And when I was speaking to this trader, I told him that I'm a very visual person, right? We had, I think it was last week's Q&A. We talked about equity curves. Was it last week where we talked about looking at equity curves as one of the biggest things I look for when it comes to metrics, because it gives you a nice visual of what the journey looks like. And I was putting in kind of a makeshift equity curve just to kind of just get more information on the trader's portfolio. And it was your typical kind of compounding equity curve where the curve starts off very shallow, right? A very low slope in the beginning, and then boom, right? The big U-shaped movement, right? You guys have seen that before? I forgot the fancy word for that type of curve, but it starts off very shallow, then boom, you see a big increase in slope as you compound, right? As you start to make percentage gains with more money. Exponential growth. There we go. Thank you, smart people. Hockey stick. There we go. We got the dumb person version, the hockey stick, and then exponential. We got the smart person version. I love you guys. This is great. So I was looking at this and I was excited. I'm like, hey, Q&A session today on Twitter. We're going to do a lesson on the power of compounding. This is a perfect example. And I said, let me ask this poll question because I haven't asked it in a while. I said, what would you rather have? Or I said, doing a lesson on the power of compounding, which leads me to ask the question, would you rather ... get rich quick or get wealthy slow, right? Get rich quick, obviously, is make a lot of money really, really, really quickly. Get wealthy slow is kind of that slow build up. Same thing for like business owners, right? The first 2 years are hell, and then things hopefully start to take off. And you're like, wow, that was crazy. Same thing in your education for trading, right? The first few years probably in trading are kind of like, I'm getting used to it, bumps and whatnot, and then boom, you take off. And you guys know what I expected, right? What was my expectation? And I did, and again, I don't know why I expected this. This is a poll in internet land, so you kind of already know how most people are thinking. But I expected, I'm like, well, 100% people would say get wealthy slow, right? Which was stupid of me. I know, I understand. I shouldn't have done that. And I checked the poll again about 2 minutes later, and there was already probably like 20 votes on it. And I was like, ooh, let's just see where it's at. And it was like 50-50. And it just set me off. Like, I was mad. I was yelling. I'm like, what is wrong with people? There's another trader I work with who hit me up on Twitter, and hit me up on Instagram. He started going off as well. He's like, Akil, I saw it. I just had this conversation with some Robinhood investor the other day, and and we're getting all angry and stuff like that. And then you got to kind of calm yourself down and realize that, although we're fortunate enough to surround ourselves in this group where I think 100 of you guys, if I asked you guys specifically the question, 100 out of you guys would say get wealthy slow. You got to remember your audience. You got to remember your audience. And most people don't think that way. And it brought me back to a few things, right? And when I was talking to this guy on Instagram, we were talking about it always goes back to the education system. We're not taught that. We're not taught about financial responsibility. We're not taught about basic economics. We're not taught any of this stuff. So we just don't know. And it reminds me also of a conversation I have with my pastor the other day, where he's doing a series in church about uncomfortable subjects. So he's covering a lot of subjects that most churches don't cover. And I spoke to him last week, and he reached out to me. He said, hey, Akil, I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you do, because one of the subjects that I want to cover is finance. And I'm like, okay, well, how does finance go under an uncomfortable subject? And he talked about how most people have the belief that money is evil, and that's 100% true. And even people within his own church, he's trying to just give a little backstory. He had started his church, basically the owners, behind the church, they sold it without him knowing, or came last minute. So he went off and started his own thing. So he's kind of starting from scratch, found his own place, is getting started again, and he's looking to be financially responsible, not so he can make super profits, but so he can afford the things that the church needs. And when he's preaching this to some of the members, they're like, they're afraid of money. They think money is evil. They don't want the church to make money because they see it as a negative. And most people in general, maybe not most people, a lot of people out there in general are scared of money, right? They think that, and let me know if you guys have ever been like this, or maybe you think like this yourself. They think that money makes you evil. Right? You guys have any family members or friends that think that, right? Money changes you. It makes you evil, makes you a bad person. I've certainly got friends and family members like that. Well, yeah, I grew up in a place like that, right? I grew up in, we weren't poor by any means, but I grew up in a very low income area. And you can see when people started making money, they became the negatives. Oh, you don't want to be like him. He's, blah, 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 blah. And money doesn't do any of that stuff. It's a myth. All money does is allow you to be, it shines the light on the person that you already are. Let's put it that way, right? If you are a bad, despicable person who doesn't have any morals or ethics, and you do nasty things, right? Money is just going to give you more means to do those despicable, nasty things, right? You can now do them with more ease, right? However, if you are a very nice person, right, money is going to be a tool that allows you to do more nice things, right? And I look back at Tier 1 trading, even Trade Empowered was like this, where, we're all nice people here, right? We don't let unnice people onto the team. We're all very charitable with both our money and our time. And one of the things that we talked about when we started Tier 1 trading was how were we going to align ourselves, right? What was going to be our mission? And we said at Tier 1 trading, we have the purpose far beyond creating successful traders, right? We want to put our own dent in the universe. We believe that everyone deserves to live an inspired life. Our core values are confidence, competence, consistency, compassion. Through our transparent contribution to wealth education, we want to increase the number of people with relevant skills for financial success, so they can too contribute towards solving meaningful problems in the world, right? And this lines up, I don't know if you guys are familiar with, the UN had something called, I think it's 17 global goals. They put it out in 2015, I want to say. But basically, they agreed to 17 global goals, right? They're officially known as the Sustainable Development Goals, right? And what they want to do is they think that these goals have the power to change the world by ending poverty, fighting inequality, addressing urgency to climate change. And if you're guided by these goals, it's going to create a better future for everyone. And the goals are, no poverty, zero hunger, good health, quality education, gender equality, clean water, affordable energy, decent work and economic growth, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace and justice, and partnerships as well. And the one that we decided to align ourselves with was number 4, which is quality education. So we always think of trading. Obviously, trading is a nice skill. You can make money with it, and that's all fun and good. You can start a business and do millions of things with it. But what we try to do, and this is the underlying theme, you see this specifically even more with Jason Greystone and his Always Free and Tears of Freedom program, is just educate people on money. And the hopes that, the more people we can educate on money, the more knowledgeable they become. They can then pass that knowledge down to friends, family, whoever. And then over time, right, this is the long game, right? Over time, we can kind of change the idea about money and the thoughts about it, that it's evil and really how you should use it and whatnot. So I was offended, yes, by the answer. But then I was okay, and then I felt bad about being offended because I said I shouldn't be. But then it kind of brought me. It was cool because it brought me back to this, and it brings you back to what is the main reason you do this? What is the why? What is the value? And kind of this was a wake up call where it's like, hey, Akil, don't forget, this is why you guys are doing this in the first place. Because right now the poll's at 60-30 or 66-33, which is getting better, but ideally, right, we'd like it to be like 90-10, right? You're never going to get 100% people, but if we can get it to 90-10, then we're doing our job. And what's cool about this is I hope people, this will probably be a podcast episode what I'm talking right now, but I hope people look at this. I hope people either see that, man, like I was the get rich quick and I'm only 30%. Why is everyone over here? They start asking questions, and we know what happens when people start asking questions. That's the first step, right? The first step is being willing to ask the question. And once you ask the question, you can start getting the answer. And if you're someone that's willing to listen, right, boom, now you're learning, which is pretty cool. So interesting. We'll see how this ends by tomorrow, but I'm hoping to get to 80-20. I'm happy now we're kind of getting back up to 60-60.